The crack of a gunshot echoed through the dusty streets of Redemption Creek, sending a flock of startled crows into the hazy Montana sky as Abigail Norwood ducked behind a water trough, her heart hammering against her corset. The year was 1878, and what had begun as a simple errand into town had spiraled into a nightmare she couldn't have imagined when she'd pinned her honey-blonde hair that morning. "Miss, you best get yourself inside," shouted a shopkeeper, slamming his door shut as more gunfire erupted from the direction of the bank. Abigail gathered her skirts and ran toward the nearest building, the Gilded Spur Saloon, her boots kicking up dust as she fled. At 22, she'd lived in Montana Territory long enough to recognize the sounds of trouble, but nothing had prepared her for finding herself in the middle of a bank robbery. The saloon doors swung wildly as she burst inside, her chest heaving with exertion. The usual afternoon card games and quiet drinking had given way to tense silence as patrons crouched behind tables and the long mahogany bar. "They're robbing the bank," she gasped, addressing no one in particular. A rough hand suddenly clamped over her mouth from behind. "Well, ain't this just perfect timing?" a gravelly voice muttered in her ear. "Boys, looks like we got ourselves some insurance." Abigail's eyes widened as she was spun around to face three men with bandanas pulled up over their faces, revolvers drawn. Their clothes were travel-worn, dusted with the red clay of the territory, and their eyes held the cold, calculating look of men who'd left their consciences far behind them. "Horace, bar the doors," ordered the tallest of the three, clearly the leader. "Emmett, check the back. Anyone tries to be a hero." He pressed his revolver against Abigail's temple. "The lady pays for it." The saloon keeper, a portly man with a gray walrus mustache, raised his hands slowly. "Now see here, we don't want no trouble. Take what you want and leave the girl be." "Shut your mouth," snapped the leader, dragging Abigail toward the center of the room. "Everyone on the floor, this is just a temporary arrangement until our associates finish their business at the bank." The few patrons, two elderly men playing checkers, a traveling salesman, and a piano player who hadn't touched the keys since Abigail's entrance, slowly complied. "You too, barkeep," the outlaw called Horace demanded, gesturing with his pistol. As the minutes ticked by, Abigail's initial terror began to crystallize into something harder: anger. The ranch she managed with her widowed father outside of town had taught her resilience and quick thinking. These men might have guns, but they were nervous, constantly glancing out the windows, clearly waiting for their companions. "Your friends are taking an awful long time," she said, her voice steadier than she felt. The leader tightened his grip on her arm. "Nobody asked you, lady." The sound of hoofbeats outside drew everyone's attention. The outlaws exchanged glances. "That ain't our boys," Emmett muttered, peering through a gap in the curtains. "It's the sheriff and some stranger riding with him." "Damnation," hissed the leader. "Looks like our jackrabbits got caught." "Change of plans, we're staying put until dark." He raised his voice to address the room. "Folks, seems like we'll be enjoying each other's company a bit longer." The saloon keeper ventured to speak again. "Mister, that there's Sheriff Dawson. He's a reasonable man. Maybe you should consider—" The outlaw's response was to fire a shot into the ceiling, sending dust and splinters raining down. "Next one goes in someone's leg. I ain't considering nothing except how we're getting out of here alive." Outside, voices called out, growing louder as more townspeople gathered. Abigail could make out the sheriff's authoritative tone as he tried to address the outlaws inside. "You, in the Gilded Spur, we know you're in there. Your partners are already in custody. Come out peaceful like, and nobody needs to get hurt." The leader dragged Abigail to the window, keeping her in front of him. "You tell him we got hostages, Sheriff. Any man comes through that door, I start shooting innocent folks." Abigail caught a glimpse of the gathering crowd, the familiar faces of townsfolk she knew, the sheriff with his silver star catching the late afternoon sun, and beside him, a tall stranger she'd never seen before. He wore a dark Stetson pulled low over his eyes, a long duster despite the summer heat, and stood with the easy confidence of a man accustomed to danger. The stranger said something to the sheriff, his face serious beneath the shadow of his hat. When he turned toward the saloon, Abigail saw eyes the color of a winter sky, taking in every detail of the building. "Who the hell is that with Dawson?" the leader demanded. "Don't know him," the saloon keeper answered truthfully. "Stranger rode in this morning. Ain't said much to nobody." Time crawled by with excruciating slowness as the afternoon sun began its descent behind the mountains. The outlaws grew increasingly agitated, arguing in hushed tones while keeping their hostages at gunpoint. They had moved the saloon's patrons to one corner, but kept Abigail separate, clearly viewing her as their most valuable bargaining chip. "You got a name, girl?" the leader asked during a lull in their planning. "Abigail Norwood," she replied, chin raised slightly. "My father's ranch supplies half the beef in this county." A calculating look crossed his face. "Norwood, eh? Old man Thomas Norwood's daughter? Well now, that might just improve our situation." "My father won't take kindly to you threatening me," she warned, though she knew her father was away in Helena on business, not due back for days. "Threatening?" The outlaw chuckled darkly. "Sweetheart, we're way past threatening. When night falls, you're our ticket out of here." As dusk settled over Redemption Creek,